Sengupta. I'm delighted to welcome onto the conversation today a writer, a stand-up comedian, a political commentator from Canada. Yes, the country that we're all talking about. Daniel Bordman is with me, joining me from Canada. We're going to talk to him about the only topic that everybody's talking about in India, and I guess also perhaps in Canada, the entire fiasco between our two countries after something Justin Trudeau did. Daniel, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been, it's been quite the last few days for Canada, as Canadians have been absolutely shocked to see our Prime Minister bungle himself into another diplomatic disaster. So I went on record and saying a couple of weeks ago this was his best trip to India. He did make a fool of himself, and he didn't get any trade deals done, but it wasn't as bad as his 2018. So hey, not that bad. Turns out this one ended up being worse. This one ended up being a lot worse.
Sorry. It, of course, was when Justin Trudeau, for all the viewers, especially in India who remember this, and in Canada, Justin Trudeau decided to visit India and only wear clothes most Indians would perhaps wear for one or two functions in a giant big Indian wedding. But he wore them every day for every occasion, which was, let's just say, a bit funny. But let's come to what happened this time. Tell us, Daniel, in your opinion, why would Justin Trudeau go go public and on the floor of your parliament make allegations of such a serious kind that Indian intelligence agencies killed Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a terror-accused person who Canada had been harboring, without any evidence? Because at the moment, as more and more people ask Justin Trudeau and his government for evidence isn't coming.
Well, there's not no evidence. It's just top secret evidence that only Justin Trudeau can see. These two things are very different. No, I mean, again, to try and figure out what Justin Trudeau is thinking, it's impossible. There's a new report that the Globe and Mail might have had some inkling of the story before it was reported, and they might have been, going to break something. So Trudeau tried to preempt that by kicking out an Indian diplomat to not look soft. Like, that's a new theory that's kind of been floated here, because a lot of Canadians, if you understand anything about foreign policy, you should understand you have no idea what's going on right now, because this is the silliest and dumbest thing you've ever seen, unless you were watching the 2015 Iran deal. But why would Justin Trudeau do this? There's a confluence of factors, potentially, right? You have Jagmeet Singh, who he's in a quasi-coalition with, who took three tries. It took him 3 tries to say that the Air India bombing was bad, terrorism, and done by the Babar Khalsa and not the Indian government. 3 tries. Usually, when someone asks, is blowing up a civilian airliner a bad thing, most of us can say right off the bat, yes, don't blow up airplanes full of innocent people. It's I know, my mom taught me that when I was whatever. You have that as his sort of the stool that he maintains his power on is Jagmeet Singh, who Jagmeet's already concluded the investigation. We don't need any more new. He found the culprit. It's not under Modi. He's flying on a plane. He's got him, cue the music. Now, for the rest of the world, they would like to see some evidence, right? You cannot start a war with a diplomatic ally that shares alliances with you and then say, yeah, they're bad. They commit clandestine assassinations. Oh, what's the evidence? Just trust me, bro. It does not work like that. So I don't know what he was planning, but there could be conflicts. Like he's a very left-wing ideologue, modern leftist intersectional ideologue. This is not the Liberal Party of John Chrétien and Paul Martin, the ones before Trudeau. They were fiscally responsible. His famous quote, there's a lot of them in 2015, is the budget will balance itself. This is the intellectual titan we're dealing with, who runs our economy. So take that. He is part of this current thing, and the modern left is not pro-India, right? There's the whole scaremongering, the Hindu nationalists, the right wing, Modi's like Trump, right? This new anti-thing. So Justin Trudeau has a very long history of going after leaders of allied countries for failing to meet modern left-wing social values while ignoring his friends, Iran, Pakistan, and those Qatar and friends. Those people are fine. But Italy's Giorgia Meloni, he goes up and lectures her. Poland, he goes up and lectures them. India, he goes up and lectures them. This is the MO of Justin Trudeau. So there is a certain amount of the modern left, right, which has this thing, and if you want to know, like, what do the average Canadian know about India? If they're on like the hard left, like it's an academic thing. You're a professor. I can teach your audience a master's level Indian history course in about 1 minute. So as you know, Indian civilization was founded by the Mughal Empire. Then a bunch of stuff happened, and then the British Empire came and they did colonialism. And colonialism was really bad, and it's the reason why every bad thing has ever happened in India, ever. And then someone named Gandhi sat down and played the bongos or something, and then India became a country and it was partitioned, and then a bunch of people died because they were murdered by the British Empire, Pakistan, what's that? And now Modi came in and it's very right-wing and Hindu, and I'm scared. So this is a master. Congratulations, you now have a master's degree in history from York University. So this is like, the, let's say, intellectual core of the liberal support. That's kind of their belief. It's standard, right? And now you have the sort of, let's say, the online right, the more politically active, like, people sort of in my circle. I'm an outlier. I've been yelling into the void about the Khalistanis and all this different stuff, many different things for years. But it's sort of, the Khalistan stuff has started to sort of gain traction since the death and recently, because it's been a bit pickup. And you have right-wing accounts, you have Twitter, when you have a bunch of people in turbans waving these flags, like attacking Indian people in Diwali. People go like, what's going on here? You get the anti-immigration sentiment, you get this, you get that mixed in. But we have had if there has been sort of a rise in paying attention to the Khalistani movement, it's still, most Canadians don't know what it is. But now we're at a point where people would start to be familiar with the phrase. People who are more online and politically engaged on the Canadian right would know what I'm talking about right now. So we're starting to see, a new attitude and a new kind of understanding come into Canada here. So that might set the framework. Like Trudeau has some of this left wing stuff. He also Justin Trudeau has the same personality type as Trump, and he's very similar to Trump in this one way. They are both reflexively vicious towards people who criticize them. Right? Trump, it was pretty good. Like, you say nice things about Trump, he says nice things about you. You say bad things about Trump, he says bad things about you. No impulse control, left, right, black, white. You like Trump, he likes you. You hate Trump, he hates you. This is also Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau and Trump are very similar. They're not uniting forces. And Justin Trudeau can be more vicious because he has this self-righteous streak to him. So yeah, could he have taken a slight from India and felt like he was sort of entitled to go off on them? And you mix that with his sort of holier than thou leftist ideology, where he thinks, oh, if India comes after him, he can just say they're far right bigots and the rest of the world will fall in line. There's some maybe delusion. I mean, the man's been in power for 8 years. You could be starting to lose it. And then you have these sort of domestic pressures of this Chinese foreign interference scandal, which he's heavily involved in. And then we have this, and he's trying to say, no, I'm standing up to foreign interference on India. India's the foreign interference, and I'm strong. So I kicked out a diplomat because there was a story a couple months ago of a Chinese diplomat threatening the family of MP Michael Chong, who was critical on the CCP. And when the evidence came out, we had the evidence. It took Trudeau like over a week, and there had to be a massive campaign from journalists, citizens, everyone to be like, kick him out now. It's been how many days he's still in Canada, and then he finally kicked him out. So by doing this, he's sort of muddied the waters a bit domestically of like, he can say, and his sycophants in the media will be like, well, it's now the Conservatives are soft on foreign interference. The Conservatives are happy with foreign interference if it's a right-wing country, and Modi's a scary right-wing nationalist. So that's what the Conservatives like that. But they don't really care about foreign interference. So foreign interference, it's a wash because it's all made up anyway because no one really cares. This is sort of the narrative that the Trudeau sycophants pushed the last few days, which was all fine and dandy until someone gets hurt. And that's when something real happened, right? You can issue travel advisories. I'll issue a travel advisory for your house right now. It's very dangerous. Don't go there. Like, what does that, it means nothing. But suspending visas, that's something. That's going to hurt. That's going to get Canadians talking. That's going to get Canadians go, what the hell is going on? So, yeah, I hope that gives a decent sort of quick overview of like what the landscape was.
Tell us, I'll come to the visa bit in just a second. Tell us, there was also an incident of a woman Baloch leader living in Canada who was killed. Almost everybody knows, I don't know whether Justin Trudeau knows, but everybody knows that the Pakistanis did it. There was no inflammatory statement about that. There was no controversy about that. No one even asked, even if somebody argues that, okay, we don't know who did it. No one ever asked publicly in the Canadian Parliament or otherwise, who did this? How did this happen? How did this woman suddenly get killed? She was a prominent Baloch, leader from Pakistan. She was living in Canada. How did she die suddenly?
No, the police got to the bottom
How
of
did
it.
Trudeau? Sorry.
The police got to the bottom of it. It was a suicide. What she did, she actually brutally strangled herself and then threw herself after she was dead in a river. This is actually what the Toronto police concluded. And it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And I was one of the only people screaming about it. I made a video just going ballistic. And we have had Pakistani dissidents die in the same manner across Europe. So, connect the dots.
What I'm going to get at is nothing of the sort, nothing of the fiasco that unfolded came from Justin Trudeau or Jagmeet Singh or any of those people in that case. Pakistan has very little to offer to Canada. India and Canada have a huge history of cooperation. Why would you blow all of that away? A cooperation with the fifth largest economy in the world, in the heart of the Indo-Pacific, about something like this, it makes no sense.
It hurts my brain. Thinking about this, I've actually lost 15 IQ points in the last 48 hours, just trying to decipher what. No, you're right. Whenever Justin Trudeau says or does something, it couldn't take anyone long. It's 5 to 10 minutes to just find an example of him not practicing what he preaches, just being an absolute hypocrite. You're right. Karima Baloch murdered, like 99.9% chance it's the ISI. It's so obviously a political hit. That's the real thing. Like, I was screaming about this, like territorial integrity, extrajudicial assassinations of political dissidents happens in Canada. Okay, it happens. Canadians, people get assassinated in Canada all the time. Happened to a friend of mine, Mehdi Amin, an Iranian friend who killed in 2020, same year as Karima Baloch. It happens, and it's horrible. It's horrible. Canada should not be a country. Canada should be a safe country. If you come from another country and you fleeing persecution, come to Canada, that's your safe harbor, and we should respect that, and we need to honor that. Like, that's what's important to Canadians here, is we want to feel safe. We want to provide a country of safety to other people. So when another government carries out an assassination on your soil, that rocks the fabric of your society. So you can understand why Canadians would be angry if the Indian government was behind this. Now, we haven't seen any evidence. This is not the Karima Baloch case. A Khalistani leader is gunned down. That happens all the time, kind of, right? There's lots of gang violence there. So we're kind of jumping the gun. And then the gaslighting. I was screaming for so long into the void on the Karima Baloch thing, the Mehdi Amin thing, that Canada doesn't protect its citizens. And the guy we're now going to bat for is Harjit Singh Najjar, the guy with the on TV, right? Standing next to
Harjit Singh Najjar, with his videos are available, where he's clearly talking about assassination after assassination. He's talking about killing Indians. There's an Interpol red corner notice on him. There's a price on his head. There is actually a gangster who's taken credit for killing him. And yet, and this is what Indians find absolutely incredible, and yet, with no evidence supporting you side by side, you would go onto the Parliament of Canada and accuse a friendly country.
I hate it. I hate every second of it. No, it's so insane. It's so insane. That's why, I was, as soon as I saw what we did, right? I made the tweet that went viral. Then I woke up and I just I grabbed the coffee and I was like, all right, I'm making a video and just yelling at the world. And then that was like, so yeah, I think Indians have, faced the wrath of Justin Trudeau's ridiculous hypocrisy. You're being first exposed to it. Whereas I've this has been 8 years of my life and I've known this. So I was just people like, okay, he's wrong here. And you're right. He's like, the more you look through Canadian politics under Justin Trudeau, it's a clown show. It's a silly country. It's a silly country full of with very silly leadership. It's full of rank hypocrisy. Everything's ridiculous. Okay, well, let's go to what kind of started this. The first shot thrown. Justin Trudeau got up in Parliament and accused Narendra Modi of conspiracy to commit murder, a clandestine assassination. That's a very serious crime, right? Conspiracy to commit murder, premeditated murder. He accused Narendra Modi of that. That's a serious thing to say from anyone except Justin Trudeau. Here's why. Justin Trudeau is a self-professed genocidal maniac. I'm not joking. Justin Trudeau once got on Canada TV a couple of years after a report on the missing, murdered Indigenous women. You know, that's our sort of racism thing in Canada. It's not white versus black. It's like, you know, Indigenous versus like that was our thing, right? It's nowhere near as bad as like every country below us, but it wasn't perfect. Oh, our country isn't. No country's perfect. But there was a report, and he accepted all the thing, and he basically went on after that report and accepted the fact that Canada committed a genocide. Canada is committing a genocide. We're actively committing a genocide. It's still happening through systemic racism or whatever. Right? So he got on TV and basically said, I'm the leader of a country that has been committing a genocide and continuing to commit a genocide. So he got up in front of the international community and copped to crimes against humanity. And we all just looked at him and said, no, shut up. Because I'm just like one of his biggest detractors. And we had a scandal in Canada or a kerfuffle in Canada where the prime minister is getting up and saying, I'm a genocidal lunatic. And all his main detractors are saying, no, you're not a genocidal lunatic. There's no genocide going on. What are you talking about? So I'm defending Justin Trudeau from Justin Trudeau accusing Justin Trudeau of being a genocidal. According to Justin Trudeau, he's still committing a genocide. He's actively committing a genocide. And it's insane. So this is the guy accusing Narendra Modi.
If I may ask you, sorry, please go on.
So the guy, I just want to point out, the guy accusing Narendra Modi of a clandestine assassination is a self-professed genocidal maniac. So
I want to understand this. How does this work for Justin Trudeau in politics? Like, I mean, if I may say so, a lot of people, you know, this plane was stuck in Delhi for like, you know, a day, you know, more than a day, nearly 2 days. And now we know, and we all suspected that this can't just be a malfunction. He was obviously trying to get the G7 to sort of, you know, make some, get them to agree to him, you know, doing some, pulling off a stunt on Indian soil. And obviously everybody refused to participate in it. If he pulls off stunts like this, he's not getting support from, you know, his own closest partners. How does it work for him in Canadian politics? How did he manage to win 2 elections?
Okay, first one, a name. His father is Pierre Elliott Trudeau, you know, charismatic, pirouetted in front of the Queen, highly controversial figure in Canadian history. But his daddy's name, good looks. That's 2015, and Stephen Harper been in power for 10 years. People are ready for a thing. Sunny ways. Canada's also a very left-leaning country. We naturally default to the Liberal Party. So he was on the red team. He had a good name. He had some good looks. He gets in 2015. You know, through then, you have to understand, because he's left-wing, the Canadian media does not treat him the same way they treat the Conservative Party. It's not even close. There's no counterbalance within the Canadian mainstream. So, you know, the main news anchor of like CBC is like, as a friend, she's taking selfies with Trudeau. They love each other. So there's the CBC, which is our left-wing government-funded broadcast, over $1 billion a year. Then you have all the mainstream media, CTV, CBC, CTV, Global, all of them. Now, every newspaper and TV network in Canada, let's say, the traditional media sources, all of them are now funded by the Liberal government. They bailed out the media to a tune of over $600 million, then added more and more. So they poured billions to subsidize these media entities. So I'm not saying every journalist in Canada and the mainstream media is corrupt. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying there is significant influence that the political establishment can put on to journalists, and they can get editorials published and sort of pushed out. We have some stories from like the trucker protest, Freedom Convoy that I heard that are insane on just how far that reach goes. So you have a media ecosystem which is incredibly friendly, which will slant everything along their favor and will deflect they're always looking for a controversy on the Conservatives, right? They're just hoping the Conservatives somewhere say something about abortion so they can turn that into a 24-hour news cycle story. Like that's Canadian politics. So he has the mainstream media pretty much in his pocket for the most part, except for a few dissidents that sometimes sneak through the cracks. Then in terms of alternative media, online media, what we do, what I do, he's been incredibly hostile. He's sued both Rebel News and True North Media, lost in court, right? But it's lawfare. He puts them through tens of thousands of dollars of legal BS. And then in order to sort of double down on it, right, the most recent bill in Canada, Bill C-18, he started a war with Google and Facebook to protect independent media. He created a situation through like trying to get us funding where Google and Facebook had to take Canadian news off of their sites or else they go financially bankrupt. So he then managed to shut down the main source of online media. So he's been a man that sort of been able to, he's been since 2015 on a mission to monopolize the flow of information. And it's having effects on Canadian society. This is why I think it's so big, or like that. I actually think it's more productive to do Indian media for Canada than Canadian media in a lot of ways, because the only thing that really influences us is external media, because they're not on the same wavelength we are, right? And it's when we see the Americans, Indians, British people, when they start saying things about Canada, all of a sudden we pay attention because we want to be these global citizens loved by everyone, right? So when it's just internally Canadian, we can print, the liberal slant of everything and obfuscate and have people who work for the Toronto Star who know absolutely nothing about anything, write whatever they want about, just take a press release straight from Katie Telford and throw it right onto the newspaper. Like that can happen. But
to another point. Sorry, please complete.
No. I don't even know where I am right now. So you lead.
I wanted to come to another point. Now this has really escalated. It began with this announcement that Justin Trudeau did. Canada fired an Indian diplomat. India fired a Canadian diplomat. By the way, even there, naming a diplomat who actually does intelligence work in an embassy is a huge violation of diplomatic code. You can, in a worst case scenario, countries ask the person to go, but they are never named. Justin Trudeau's government took the exceptional step of actually naming the person. This is never really done. I want you to talk a little bit about that. And the other thing is, now it's come to a point where India has stopped visas. What does that mean for in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, you're right on the diplomatic break of protocol. Like, again, as soon as I saw what he did, I went on the W2F, like, what? Like, what are we doing? What's happening? This is insane. I believe BS insane is the phrase I used in the original tweet. Yeah, it's madness. It's absolute madness. It's a breach of all protocol. But listen, you just have to chalk it up to, that's just Justin Trudeau. And in terms of visas, as I said, okay. So you had the sort of kicking out a diplomat. Okay, whatever. That's this, that. Right. Then you had the travel advisories. Those are nonsense. That's just bluster. India's fine. No one's in danger in India. Canada's fine. No one's in danger in Canada. Like, yeah, okay, if you go full Hindu and you have it wrapped in an Indian flag and you go into a Khalistani temple, okay, you're not fine. But for the most part, there's no travel advisories. This is just countries slapping each other. This is a punch. The visa thing is a legit punch. It's the Indians saying, okay, you started this. So we're in a geopolitical fight. And if we're going to fight, then here's a punch. Like, what can you do? Are we going to suspend visas from India coming in? Like, the Canadian universities, they're a cash cow for Indian students, right? Like, this is their entire economy is like getting students from India and China to pay more to just go to undergrad to fund them. Like, and what's the value of a modern education here and there, right? A lot of these questions might start to pop into Indian kids' minds who's 17, maybe try a bit harder to get into, Duke instead of Queen's University or my alma mater, right? That's probably going to be some of the mentality going forward. There'll be Canadians that will be affected by this. And that's a big deal. Like I said, if you live in a major Canadian city, Toronto, Ottawa, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Montreal, wherever, if you're not a complete psychopath, like skinhead neo-Nazi, you have Indian friends, right? You have friends of Indian descent. It's going to affect someone of them or their family, which I mean to say is this story is going to affect and go into the lives and have real world manifestations that affect the sort of upper middle class urban elites, as you call them. They will have friends who are in India who go, I don't like this. And they'll start to explain the Indian position to Canadians, and Canadians will be horrified because, again, we want to be friends with everyone. And they won't like this from Justin Trudeau. They won't like it. And even the left-wingers don't like it because we do not like being seen as an interesting country where stuff happens. We are a boring country where nothing bad happens and the Americans are crazy and we're not the crazy ones and we do nothing wrong and everyone loves Canada. Canadians love telling people that Americans put Canadian flags on their backpacks when they go to travel any other place. This is more important than our GDP to like a certain segment of the population, and I'm not lying about that. So this mentality of nothing bad happens here. We're so simple, we're so reasonable. This has been threatened. And when that is threatened from an international community, especially India, right? If this was Iran yelling at us or China, we go, then. But this is the largest democracy in the world. This is another, child of the Commonwealth. We're cousins or brothers or whatever it is, probably cousins internationally. And we started a war over what? And then regular Canadians could be like, yes, whatever. But once Canadians start to pay attention more, and eventually the videos of Nadler going da 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 da, and Hindus need to die, they're going to come to light, and Canadians will be like, so we're supposed to, go to DEFCON 1 over this guy? As I said, if there was like a little girl, a 10-year-old girl, just cute as could be, in a little Khalistan dress, free Khalistan, twirling around in a field, and the next day she ends up shot dead, and the Indian government might be involved in that, that's a massive political, oh my God, they killed, little what's her face. How do they, right? Because that's a lot different than, the guy who's going again, kill, and his friends are still going, well, in honor of Harjit Singh Najjar, we want to honor him and kill. So once Canadians see that, because again, the media is not showing them that part, but the international media, the Americans, if they cover it, they're, unless they talk to the World Sikh Organization or the Muslim Brotherhood, they're gonna, they're gonna mention it. So there's a bit of a bubble in Canada over news and stuff like this that sometimes bursts, right? Because when a story first breaks in Canada, you get the heavily slanted liberal view, and then few dissenting independent voices start to come out, break from the mainstream, and add a new perspective. Canadians learn a bit more, international media gets involved, and then we try and straighten ourselves out. That's the nature of a Canadian geopolitical controversy.
I want to talk to you a little bit about what happens next. The Khalistan movement has been given this impetus now. Jagmeet Singh is behind it. The gang wars are on. One more person has been killed. None of this is stopping anytime soon. Where do you think things will roll from here?
Hard to say. I mean, domestically in Canada, Trudeau was so underwater. He's going to lose in 22 to 25. This just hurts his legacy more. And hopefully, the only good silver lining he can have of this is maybe Canadians are a bit more frustrated and he gets less public primetime TV slots in our country as former prime minister, and he can just go away and I don't have to see him for a while. That's the only potential silver lining. But he's going to be there till 2025. Him and Jagmeet are not propping themselves up. You think, Canadians, Jagmeet Singh is not going to call an election or break the coalition over Justin Trudeau lying and ruining our relationship with India. That's his MO. This is his dream. This is what Jagmeet's he's having a great day. He's having a great time. He's doing well. He doesn't care what the report is. Jagmeet Singh's party HQ, right? Disco ball's going off. He's having a time. So, future Canadian politics. I don't see us winning this bet with India. That's my number one, right? This is like Harlem Globetrotters versus the Washington Generals. Probably more lopsided than that. But so we're going to lose this thing to India. What are the long-term consequences? I don't know. Can this be repaired? Does Trudeau have to get on his hands and knees and say mea culpa? The guy's a bit of a narcissist. He likes throwing other people under the bus. Maybe he throws Jagmeet under the bus here and just on an impulse. And then that breaks the coalition. That'd be nice. And then we can get rid of him. That's best case scenario. He throws Jagmeet under the bus. And then that causes an election, which I put the odds of that happening low. Not zero, but low. Canada-India relations, I just hope that India understands it was Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh. And when Polyev gets in and calls Modi on the phone and says, hey, man, listen, I get it with the Khalistanis. I get it with Justin Trudeau. We're going to whatever. I'm sure they can work something out. They'll in a month after he gets elected, there'll be a grain deal for $400 million of pennies, but just a show of good faith or whatever. And, and then we can work and there'll be some softening of rhetoric and shifting on the Khalistani thing slowly. And then hopefully we can go back to being friends with the world's largest democracy. Because this is just so stupid.
We were great friends with the world's largest democracy when Stephen Harper used to be head of your government. Canada and India have very deep familial ties, as you just explained in your own comments. And I think you should know, as a Canadian from coming from an Indian, me, that most Indians are astonished that something like this happened. We don't know where this came from. We don't know how this happened, and we don't know how this blew out of, up into this, gigantic thing. But thank you very much for explaining all of this to us. I really appreciate your time. Any last comments?
No, I just thank everyone for the all the opportunities. It's really great. If you follow me on Twitter, and if you could follow me and the National Telegraph on Twitter, because they ban news on everyone else. It's the only place in Canada we could do news. So if you could subscribe to the National Telegraph on Twitter so we can do the news, that would be a huge help. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.